1 month later. Brakes squeal, steam vents. Dr. Welch and his team are pulling into a train station in Washington, D.C., returning from a grueling cross-country inspection of military hospitals. They hope to make their report and get some rest. Instead, a soldier meets them on the platform with new orders. Proceed immediately to Devens. Spanish influenza has struck the camp. Eight hours later, Welch and his team arrive in Massachusetts. They find Camp Devens paralyzed. Patients fill each inch of hospital space, turning blue and coughing so hard they tear their abdominal muscles. They hemorrhage blood from their noses and scream in fevered delirium. In extreme cases, the disease has ripped tiny holes in their lungs. Oxygen leaks out, collecting beneath the victim's skin, so they crackle when nurses roll them over, like the pop-snap sound of rice cereal. What is happening? All training has stopped. Recruits that aren't sick have been put into service caring for those that are. Nearly half the camp's medical staff is ill. Some didn't even show symptoms, they just collapsed. These sudden onset patients often die within 12 hours. Those that avoid that quick death are falling to secondary pneumonia infections. The Army has arranged special trains to take away the dead, and it's already showing up in Boston. After a marathon session of autopsies revealing lungs full of frothy blood, the team turns to Welch. He's the head of the American Medical Association and has studied rare diseases on 3 continents. Shaken, Welch says, "This must be some kind of new infection or plague." Then he runs out of the room, stepping around sick men to get to a phone. He calls his boss, Army Surgeon General Gorgas. "This is going to spread," he says. The Army needs to shut down troop movements and expand hospital space now. Then, he calls the Rockefeller Institute and orders Dr. Oswald Avery to report to Devens. Avery is a peculiar man. Like Welch, he'd shown no interest in marriage or family, but unlike Welch, who schmoozed at private clubs and vacationed in Atlantic City, Avery had no hobbies or social life. He is a single-minded obsessive who lives in an apartment next to the Institute and talks only about his work. If anybody could find the pathogen responsible, Avery could. But they have so little time. Several things need to happen, Welch reasons. They need to figure out how the disease spreads and how to kill it, and whether they could do anything to stop it. They need to identify the pathogen, the bacteria or toxin that caused this disease, so they could develop a serum, antitoxin, or vaccine. And that was Avery's task. Avery, who had done such good work on the pneumonia serum they'd tested in the summer, which might come in handy given all the secondary pneumonia cases. But Welch and his team weren't the only ones hunting for the pathogen. Long Island, New York. The speeding Board of Health car fishtails down the dirt road. Inside it sits the most unusual pair in American medicine. In the passenger seat, hanging on for dear life, is Dr. William Park. Behind the wheel, with her foot firmly on the accelerator, is the lab's assistant director, Dr. Anna Williams. The two seem almost polar opposites. Where Park is religious, Williams doubts. He's a gentleman born to high society, where she prefers driving fast cars and riding shotgun on stunt planes. But in 25 years of collaboration, they've won fame for their work on polio, rabies, and diphtheria, which is why they're speeding towards an army base. If American doctors hope to produce a vaccine or serum to fight this new disease, they need Park and Williams. No one, not even their rivals at Rockefeller, can produce vaccine in the quantities Park can. If they isolate the pathogen, he can inject it into a horse, then draw the blood and extract the equine antibodies. And Park has a lot of horses. It's how they made enough diphtheria antitoxin to supply every doctor in New York free of charge. They park the car, tie on their masks, and get to work. Within hours, they're heading back to the city. The back seat's stuffed full of throat swabs, blood samples, and lung tissue. Both teams are looking for the same thing: Bacillus influenzae. 16 years earlier, the German physician Richard Pfeiffer had identified it as the cause of influenza, a discovery so momentous that the microbe was nicknamed Pfeiffer's bacillus. But Pfeiffer's is difficult to identify and isolate. A tiny error in preparation can ruin the sample, so finding it takes time. Meanwhile, Army epidemiologists are tracking the spread of the disease. They could actually chart it on a map, jumping from base to base along shipping routes and rail lines. Boston, Philadelphia, New York, New Orleans, Puget Sound, the Great Lakes. Sometimes men became so sick in transit that they had to be carried off the ships and trains when they reached their destinations. Their initial investigation suggests it's severe influenza. That means it's airborne and can survive for hours on hard surfaces. The large number of secondary infections indicate that it suppresses the immune system. Surgeon General Gorgas tries to raise the alarm. He insists his superiors freeze all transfers and stop the troop ships. At the very least, they could hold the men in quarantine for a week before they board. The military refuses. Germany is on their last legs, they argue. The Austrians and the Ottomans are rumored to be drafting peace offers. This is not the time to let up the pressure. Nothing must distract them or the public from the war effort. They send out the next draft registration, forcing thousands of men across the country to crowd into civic buildings to fill out paperwork. Gorgas protests. What is the point of this? The camps have stopped all training to deal with the outbreak. These new draftees wouldn't become fighting men. They'd just report for duty and get flu. Finally, a win. The army agrees and cancels the next draft. But it's too late. As Gorgas battles the generals, unit commanders are already ignoring medical advice. At Camp Grant, a doctor sits in the commandant's office telling his commander that the overcrowding situation is dangerous. He's ignoring regulations. Too many men in the barracks and on transfer trains. The commandant's answer will seal his fate. In 2 weeks, the doctor will be back in this office, telling him that 500 men are dead. The last troop train they'd sent had turned into a plague train. A quarter of the transfers had to be hospitalized, and the camp had run out of coffins. Upon hearing this, the commandant will order the doctor out of his office, draw his pistol, and take his own life. But that is 2 weeks from now. At this moment, he says the overcrowding is necessary. This is war, doctor. But as bad as things are in the military, they're worse on the civilian front. The head of the Public Health Service is in denial. He issues a useless notice on how to avoid influenza and collects some statistics, but does nothing more. The military worries that raising public awareness of the flu will damage morale, and he's not a man to stand up to the military. And he's not alone. In Boston, New York, and Philadelphia, people are starting to collapse on the street or fall from horseback. Hacking, shivering patients fill hospitals. Employee absenteeism hikes up, but civic leaders refuse to admit the growing crisis. As Park and Williams race to identify the pathogen, with half their staff ill and some dying, the head of the New York Board of Health, a homeopath with no scientific training, denies there's an epidemic. In Philadelphia, the mayor and his health officials are telling the press that the outbreak is nearly over. They continue doing so day after day as the death toll mounts and hospital wards fill. The press buries flu reports in the back pages to preserve wartime morale. After all, panicked citizens don't show up for work at the shipyard. They don't visit their neighborhood Marine recruiter or buy Liberty loans to fund the war effort. And that last one is important, because Philadelphia is about to throw the largest Liberty loan drive in the country. Soon, thousands will march through the city, and hundreds of thousands will turn up to watch and chip in. Doctors urge the mayor to cancel all public gatherings. He refuses. September 27th. There's been progress. Welch and his team at Camp Devens telephone their report to Gorgas. They've found Pfeiffer's bacillus in a majority of the flu cases. Park and Williams confirm the findings in their samples. Now, if they can isolate and grow a sample of Pfeiffer's, they can begin work on a vaccine. But Avery isn't so sure. He'd found Pfeiffer's, but not consistently. In fact, he wonders if something else is responsible. A virus too small to see. If so, they could only hope that when they produced the vaccine, the horse would make antibodies for this virus as well. It was the best they could do. After making his report, Welch boards a train to D.C. It had been a period of exhausting, dangerous work. He feels bone-tired and has a headache. The symptoms start to show on the train ride. He switches his ticket and gets a room at his favorite hotel in Atlantic City. He'll remain there, delirious in self-imposed quarantine for weeks. The most respected man in American medicine is out of action, right when the country needs him most, because America was about to run out of coffins.